Hi there and welcome to another video from Hegarty Maths. It's Mr. Hegarty here, and in this video we're dealing with simultaneous equations by elimination. Our first video on the topic of simultaneous equations and very much an introduction to the idea. To start with, a skill you need to be able to do all the skills in simultaneous equations, to be able to substitute into an equation and solve for another variable. That was the skill before this one. Pause the video and double check you can answer these two questions. That is going to be vital in this particular video and the forthcoming ones. Okay, hopefully you could. And I got x is 14 thirds or 14 over 3 and y is negative 2. If that's not very straightforward for you, please go back to the earlier skill of substituting and solving in order to refresh this. Okay, now on to simultaneous equations. I'm going to explain what they are by introducing you to a puzzle. Suppose you had the following. 5 t-shirts and a hat cost £22. 2 t-shirts and a hat cost £10. Someone asked you, how much therefore does a t-shirt cost? How much does a hat cost? Well, let's draw a picture to represent this problem. 5 t-shirts, here's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and a hat, and they cost, we're told, £22. So the sum of them is £22. We also know 2 t-shirts and a hat cost £10. So 2 t-shirts here and a hat, I'll put the hat in line with this hat, cost £10. Does that help you solve the puzzle? How much does a t-shirt or a hat cost? Well, it helps me because I know 2 t-shirts and a hat cost £10. So these 2 t-shirts in this picture and this hat must be £10, mustn't they, together? So because all of this adds up to 22, it must mean the difference, the only difference between this line and this line are the 3 t-shirts. And the 3 t-shirts must be what it takes to add to 10 to get to 22. They must be £12. So if 3 t-shirts are £12, each one must be £4. 12 divided by 3. So that t-shirt's £4, that one's £4, so is that one. So all of them are £4 because they're all identical. So we could put £4 in each of these. So the question is then, what's a hat worth? Well, you can use either of these equations to work it out. You can either do 4 add 4 is 8. What do you need to add to 8 to get to 10? Well, that tells you that's 2. Double check it works up here. 4 add 4 add 4 add 4 add 4 is 20. Add what gets you 22? Again, the hat must be £2. And there you go. We've solved the problem using pictures. Now, we are going to start solving these problems using algebra, because I gave you a very simple example here that you could use a picture to draw. But in general, I'm going to give you much more complicated cases where you can't just draw a picture. So what we're going to do is we're going to say things like we're going to give a variable or a letter to an unknown that we don't know. We want to know how much a t-shirt costs. Why don't we call that x? We also want to know how much a hat costs, so we could call that, let's say, y. And we're told 5 t-shirts and a hat, 5 t-shirts plus a hat is 22. So we could say 5x plus a hat, which is y, must be equal to 22. And we could also state 2 t-shirts and a hat cost £10, so 2x plus y must be £10. And this is the type of puzzle we're going to solve in this particular skill. And it comes from these type of real-world scenarios. And algebra is going to help us in the long run. You may think, oh, that's made it a bit more complicated. Trust me, it's going to be better in the long run when we have negatives, when we have difficult numbers, when we don't have the same amount of hats, let's say, they're different, and it's going to be really useful to us. It gives us a nice, neat way of solving. Just before we go on, and I'm going to resolve this puzzle using algebra, I just want to point out a bit of language we need to know to solve these type of equations. Firstly, when you get a pair of equations like this with 2 unknown variables and you're asked to solve it, these are called a pair of simultaneous equations. Okay, so you might be asked to solve a pair of simultaneous equations. Now, x and y have a name. Do you remember what we call x and y? X and y are called variables. They're unknowns and we need to find what their values are. That's what solve these means. We have to find both the x and the y that make these true at the same time. So when we found an x and a y that makes this one true, it also has to make this one true. Okay, what else do we need to know? Well, we're going to talk about the numbers in front of the variables. Okay, now before we do that, is there a number in front of the y variable? There is actually, it's a hidden 1. But you know what mathematicians are like, they don't write the 1, but it's useful to think of it as being there. And the numbers in front of the x's and the y's, the variables, are called coefficients. And that's going to be an important term we use when we're describing how to solve these type of things. Okay, and that's about everything that you need to know for this particular skill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end the video by solving the puzzle. We already know what the answer is. We know that the t-shirts were £4 and the hats were £2, but I'm going to show you how to solve it algebraically so we can start doing this in future skills. Let's have a go. This is the strategy. The very first thing you do is you label the equations equation 1 and equation 2. Always do that, just so you've got something to refer to. Then what you do, step 2, is you look at the coefficients of the x's, see if they're the same, not the same. You look at the coefficients of the y's and see if they're the same. Yeah, they are actually. They're both really a coefficient of 1. At that point, you're in a good place. Because what we can do, we can take the whole of equation 1 and subtract from it the whole of equation 2. i.e., we could work out equation 1 subtract equation 2, which we must tell what we're doing as we're working it out. So, I'm going to even draw a line under it. Imagine it as a column subtraction. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 5x's take away 2x's is 3x's. 1y take away 1y is nothing. I purposefully only subtracted when I made the coefficient of one of the variables the same on purpose because I wanted to eliminate that variable. That's why this technique is called elimination. You decide on a variable you want to eliminate by doing some sort of combination of the equations you're given. And 22 subtract 10 is going to be 12. This is great now. Look at this. We have an equation, but we've only got one unknown in it. We've solved these many times before. 3x is 12. You would undo the multiply by 3 by dividing both sides by 3. And you would get yourself that x is therefore equal to 12 divided by 3, which is 4. That married up to what we learned earlier. Do you remember the t-shirts were £4? Great. We haven't solved it yet because when you solve it, you have to find the x and the y. So in order to do that, we need to put this 4 into one of the equations above to find the y that matches it. So tell the examiner what you're doing. We're going to substitute x equals 4 in either 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. Usually choose the easiest. The easiest in this case is 2 because there's less x's, but really it doesn't matter. I'll put it into 2 just for the sake of it. You have to write what you're doing as you do this. So you're substituting in 4 for x. So 2, I'll put it in brackets, brackets 4, add y, which you don't know, that's what you're trying to find, is equal to 10. Can you see I've just rewritten equation 2 but with 4 stuck in or substituted for x. Now I can work it out. That's 8 plus y is equal to 10. To find y, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides here, and I'm going to get myself positive y, which we just write as just y is equal to 2. And yes, that was the hat. The hat cost £2, we got it. At the very end, make sure you state your final answer together like this. And before you go on, just double check it works in both equations. 5 times 4 is 20, add 2 is 22, yeah. 2 times 4 is 8, 8 add 2 is 10, yeah, I got it. Put your smiley face there and you've checked it. And that's it. That is solving simultaneous equations and how we do it. And in the future skills, we're going to do various examples with different numbers and coefficients, etc. But I just want to point out to you, it's very similar to what we did here. It's almost identical. It's just with algebra. Do you remember the first step was to work out the difference between the two equations, and we saw that the only difference was 3 t-shirts between the equations, and therefore that price must be £12. And that's what we did when we took away the equations, and then we divided by 3 to work out each one's 4, and we put 4 in back for each t-shirt to check what the missing hat must cost. So this procedure is exactly like what I showed you. It's just a nice, neat, algebraic way to solve these, and it's going to be really good when these numbers get hard. That's it for this video. Go on to the next skill for more examples.